So let me ask you this. Ever feel like you're just, carrying around this invisible backpack full of old hurts?
Uh-huh. That kind of weight that just makes everything feel a bit harder.
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today, this whole idea of forgiveness. People talk about it all the time, like it's the key to a good life, to peace. But what does it really mean? What's the actual story?
It's a great question. And for this deep dive, we're leaning on a really insightful sermon from Pastor Zhenong. He frames forgiveness as a pathway to what he calls a good and beautiful life.
Okay.
And he does it by bringing together scripture, but also psychological insights. So we're getting a few different angles on it.
Which is important because it's not simple, is it?
Yeah.
Forgiveness can feel like a huge ask, especially when the hurt is real, when you feel genuinely wronged.
Definitely. So, yeah, our goal isn't to gloss over how hard it can be. It's more about digging into what forgiveness actually is and maybe how it could genuinely help you find a bit more peace now, you know, without ignoring the tough stuff.
Right. So the core idea,
Yeah.
where do we start?
Well, Pastor Zhang puts it quite directly. He defines forgiveness as being at peace at this moment, whatever things has happened in any of our lives.
Peace now, regardless of the past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about finding that sense of calm, maybe acceptance right here, right now, even with all that emotional baggage we might be carrying.
That resonates, doesn't it? That feeling of wanting to be less burdened, more
Okay.
present. He shares this story, right, from when he was a hospital chaplain.
Oh, yeah, that's powerful. His supervisor taught him these 5 specific phrases for people nearing the end of life.
What were they again?
I forgive you. You forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Goodbye.
Wow. The fact that forgiveness, giving and receiving is right there alongside I love you and thank you.
Exactly. At such a critical moment, it really underlines how fundamental forgiveness is often seen, for finding closure, for finding peace.
It seems like it works on multiple levels then. Pastor John talks about that too, right? This sort of dual nature.
He does. He calls it both self-liberation and growth. Like, it's a process that frees you up emotionally, but also helps you mature, maybe even spiritually.
So letting go of the past pain isn't just about forgetting, it's about actively freeing yourself.
Yes. And on that deeper level, he frames it as a kind of reconciliation, maybe with God or a higher power, but also with what he calls your true self.
True self, okay? Unpack that a bit. What does that mean in this context? Reconciling with your true self through forgiveness.
Well, think of it like when you're holding on to resentment or anger, there's this inner conflict, right? A sort of dissonance.
Sure. Feels uncomfortable, out of sync.
Exactly. So forgiveness, in this view, lets you release that internal conflict. It allows you to accept yourself, maybe your own imperfections too, right here in the present, without the past constantly pulling you back. It's like finding a more authentic, peaceful inner state.
Okay, that makes sense. But it still comes back to that phrase, letting go. We hear it all the time. But actually doing it, that feels like the massive hurdle.
It absolutely is. And Pastor Joang brings in this observation from a colleague, a professional counselor.
Uh-huh.
She noticed that so many of her clients just feel stuck. And the reason they're stuck, they literally can't let go of past hurts, old grievances. It's a really common struggle.
Oh, I bet. He told that joke too, didn't he? About the couple arguing.
Slight chuckle. Yeah, the guy whose wife gets historical.
Not hysterical, historical. Because she brings up everything from the past.
Right. And while it's funny, it kind of nails that tendency we can all have, doesn't it? To keep old wounds fresh and let them poison the present.
Totally. And the consequence, as Zhang points out, is you don't find that peace you're looking for.
You stay stuck in that loop, looking backwards, unable to really fully be here.
So, okay, acknowledging it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
How do we start to move past that? He brings in some biblical perspectives, right?
Yep.
Starting with Peter asking Jesus.
Yeah, the famous exchange. Peter asks, basically, how many times do I have to forgive someone who keeps messing up? Like 7 times.
Jesus' answer is pretty overwhelming.
Not 7 times, but 77 times. Or some translations say 70 times 7, but the point is, a lot.
It sounds impossible. But then there's C.S. Lewis's take on it.
Right, which is really helpful. Lewis suggested maybe it's not about forgiving 77 different offenses from someone. Maybe it's about forgiving the same offense, the same hurt that keeps popping back into your head, into your feelings 77 times.
Ah, okay. Like every time the memory surfaces or the anger flares up again, you have to choose to forgive it again.
Exactly. And Lewis was very honest about his own struggles. He wrote in his journal about finally feeling he'd forgiven someone after like 30 years of trying.
30 years. Wow. That makes it feel much more human,
Yeah.
relatable. It's a process, not a switch you flip.
Absolutely. It underscores that it can be a long journey. Then Pastor Zhang looks at Paul's writings in Colossians chapter 3.
What's the message there?
Paul is basically outlining how to live this good life. He lists qualities like compassion, kindness, humility, and forgiveness is right in there. He says we should forgive because God has forgiven us.
Is there a specific verse he highlights?
Yes, verse 13. Be tolerant with each other, and if someone has a complaint against anyone, forgive each other. As the Lord forgave you, so also forgive each other.
So it's almost like a reflection. We forgive because we've received forgiveness.
That's the idea. It's presented as this kind of reciprocal thing, rooted in the grace we've experienced.
And he connects this to the Lord's Prayer too, doesn't he? Something about the word trespass.
Yeah, this is fascinating. He points out that the original Aramaic word, often translated as trespasses or sins, is actually closer to the word for debts.
Debts. How does that change things?
Well, it reframes God's forgiveness less as overlooking a mistake and more like completely canceling a debt you could never repay. It emphasizes this idea of unconditional grace, something totally unearned.
That's a powerful image, canceling the debt.
And another subtle point he makes about the prayer, notice we ask, forgive us our debts, before we get to, as we forgive our debtors.
So we ask for our own forgiveness first.
Right. It suggests a kind of humility is needed, an acknowledgement that, hey, we all mess up, we're all in need of forgiveness ourselves. The focus starts inward.
That inward focus. That seems like a bridge to the psychological side of things, doesn't it? Which Jung also brings in with Fred Luskin.
Exactly. He introduces Luskin's work, the book Forgive for Good, and highlights the research connecting forgiveness to, well, better health, both emotional and even physical.
Okay, so there are tangible benefits to forgiving beyond just the spiritual idea.
Definitely. And Luskin's core message really hammers this home. He says, and this is a key quote John uses, all of forgiveness work is about us, not them. And all of forgiveness work is to widen our hearts. It's not to change somebody else.
Wow. Say that again. All of forgiveness work is about us, not them.
Yeah, it shifts the whole focus. It's not about letting the other person off the hook, necessarily. It's about your internal state.
It's about freeing yourself, like we said earlier, not changing them, but widening your heart. That's powerful.
It really is. It puts the power back in your hands, in a way. It's not dependent on the other person apologizing or changing. It's an internal choice for your own well-being.
And Luskin also talks about acknowledging the hurt, right? It's not about pretending it didn't happen.
Precisely. Pastor Zhang points out that Luskin emphasizes validating the victim's pain. You have to acknowledge the reality of the hurt, the injustice, whatever it was. That's often a crucial first step before you can even think about moving towards forgiveness.
So you're not dismissing your own feelings. You're saying, yes, this hurt, this was wrong, and then you can work on not letting it control your future.
Exactly. What's fascinating here is how it validates your experience, but also empowers you. You own the pain, but you choose not to be defined by it forever.
Okay. This makes it feel more doable somehow. Still hard, but doable.
It's a process. Which leads nicely into another piece. Pastor Jam shared that prayer by Rabbi Jack Reimer.
In the season of forgiveness, yeah.
Yeah.
What stood out there?
It just really captures the effort involved. It's not passive. The prayer talks about needing to turn towards forgiveness. There are lines like, unless we turn, we will be trapped forever in yesterday's ways.
Trapped in yesterday's ways. That echoes the counselor's point about people feeling stuck.
It does. It frames forgiveness as this active, conscious choice you have to make to break free from the past's grip. It's not something that just happens to you.
And the prayer also hints at the vulnerability, right? Admitting maybe your own part, letting go of wanting payback.
Yes, all of that. It acknowledges it's not easy, extending compassion perhaps when anger feels more natural.
But the potential outcome, according to Pastor Zhong, is huge. Rediscovering joy, receiving grace.
Yeah, he connects practices like prayer, these spiritual disciplines, to this ongoing work of forgiveness. He sees them as ways to open ourselves up, to expand our hearts and minds, to receive that gift of forgiveness, both from God and for ourselves.
Leading towards that good and beautiful life he mentioned at the start.
Exactly. He suggests that ultimately, God wants us to use forgiveness not just to heal past wounds, but to deepen our connection, to become more generous people, emotionally richer.
And he ends with that image.
Yeah.
Putting on God's wardrobe of grace.
Yeah, like clothing yourself in these qualities, forgiveness, compassion, kindness, and walking forward, inviting God, or maybe just a sense of higher purpose, to be your guide, your partner in life.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive,
Hmm.
We've seen forgiveness from a few angles. Spiritually, it's about grace, reconciliation, mirroring divine forgiveness. Psychologically, it's about emotional freedom, health, widening our own hearts.
And the common thread seems to be it's not primarily about the other person or condoning what happened. It's fundamentally about you finding peace in the present.
Right. It's an active choice, often a really tough one, to let go of the past hold on you for your own sake. And it's usually a process, not a one-off event.
Definitely not a quick fix. It takes intention, effort.
And here's where it gets really interesting, I think. That deep sense of inner freedom, that lightness we crave, it really does seem to come from within through this, sometimes courageous act of forgiveness.
Which brings us to a final thought, maybe for you listening. Think about one past hurt, maybe something small, maybe something bigger that you feel you're still carrying around. Knowing everything we've talked about, that forgiveness is mainly for your peace, your well-being. What's maybe one tiny small step you could consider taking today? Not necessarily forgiving entirely, but just moving towards widening your heart, as Luskin puts it.
Doesn't have to be huge, just a little shift.
Yeah, maybe just how you think about it for a moment. No pressure to have an answer right now, but just something to ponder, something to carry forward from this dive.